The Christmas lights twinkled like stars strung across the living room, casting a warm glow over the dining table in my parents' Seattle home. The air smelled of gingerbread cookies and pine from the towering tree in the corner, its ornaments glinting with every flicker of the fireplace. My extended family was all here: cousins, aunts, uncles, chattering over plates piled with ham, cranberry sauce, and roasted potatoes. It was the kind of scene you'd see on a holiday card, picture perfect, the kind that makes you believe in family. But for me, Lydia Harper, it was just another evening of blending into the background. I sat near the end of the table, slicing a cookie into tiny pieces for my 7-year-old nephew, Owen, who was giggling at a snowman joke I'd whispered. No one asked how my job as a data analyst was going. No one noticed the exhaustion behind my smile after a 60-hour workweek. They never did. I was 42, single, childless, and to them, that made me invisible, useful only when someone needed a favor. I was used to it, or so I thought, until the clink of a wine glass silenced the room. "I have an announcement," my older brother Nathan said, standing up, his broad shoulders squared like he was about to deliver a sermon. His voice carried that same commanding tone he used at his auto repair shop, but his eyes glinted with something sharper, almost smug. My mother, Margaret, leaned forward, her part-time retail job leaving her hands rough, but her holiday sweater pristine. My younger sister, Samantha, stopped scrolling on her phone, her freelance copywriting gigs always a topic she dodged. Everyone turned to Nathan, forks paused, waiting. "We've been talking," he said, glancing around like a politician rallying a crowd. "As a family, we decided it's time for honesty." My father, George, a retired maintenance worker, coughed softly, his bad back making him shift uncomfortably. Nathan's wife, Emily, a nurse, looked down at her plate. I felt a knot tighten in my stomach, though I didn't know why. "Last week we took a vote," Nathan continued, his gaze landing on me, heavy and deliberate. "Lydia, we've decided you're no longer part of this family." The words hit like a slap, so sharp I thought I'd misheard. The room went still, the crackle of the fireplace deafening. Then, the worst part, a slow clap started. Samantha smirked, her manicured nails tapping her glass. Margaret nodded, as if Nathan had just announced the weather. My cousin Derek raised his beer in a mock toast. Even Owen's giggles faded, his small face confused. "Finally," Samantha muttered, loud enough for everyone to hear, her voice dripping with the kind of venom she usually saved for her snarky blog posts. I looked at George, my father, hoping for a flicker of defense. He just stared at his plate, muttering, "Maybe it's for the best." My hand gripped the edge of the table, the festive tablecloth crumpling under my fingers. The ham on my plate was still warm, but I felt frozen, not from sadness, but from a fury I hadn't known I could feel. They'd planned this. They'd sat around, voted, and now they were laughing about it. I wasn't just invisible anymore. I was expendable. The silence in my parents' dining room was thick, broken only by the faint hum of Christmas carols from the living room stereo. My family's smug faces, Nathan's self-righteous smirk, Samantha's mocking grin, my mother Margaret's approving nod, burned into me. They'd just voted me out, clapped like it was a game, and now they expected me to slink away, tail between my legs. But something inside me snapped. I wasn't the quiet, compliant Lydia they'd banked on anymore. I pushed my chair back, the scrape against the hardwood floor slicing through the tension. "You planned this?" I asked, my voice low but steady, locking eyes with Nathan. His smirk faltered, just for a second. "You're always so distant, Lydia," he said, leaning back in his chair like he was scolding an employee at his auto repair shop. "You act like you're above us, hoarding your fancy data analyst salary while we struggle." Samantha nodded, tossing her hair. "You've never really been one of us," she added, her tone sharp like the captions she wrote for clickbait ads. I didn't flinch. Instead, I reached for my bag and pulled out a thick manila folder, its weight heavy with years of secrets. I set it on the table with a soft thud that felt like a gavel strike. The room froze. Margaret's wine glass hovered midair. Nathan's eyes narrowed. "What's that?" Samantha asked, her voice suddenly small, like she sensed a storm coming. "Take a look," I said, crossing my arms. my gaze never leaving hers. Samantha hesitated, then flipped open the folder. Her face drained of color, like she'd seen a ghost. Her hand shook as she turned the first page, then the next. A sharp gasp escaped her, loud enough to make Owen, my nephew, whimper from his seat. Emily, Nathan's wife, snatched the folder from Samantha, her nurse's instincts kicking in as she scanned the pages. Seconds later, she looked at me, her eyes wide. "Lydia, is this real?" "Every dollar, every lie, every truth," I said, my voice calm but cutting. The folder was my armor, meticulously compiled over 7 years. Bank statements, screenshots, receipts, all documenting the $92,000 I'd poured into this family. Emily flipped to a page showing a $5,000 transfer to Nathan's account, dated 2 years ago, right after he'd claimed his shop was on the brink of bankruptcy. "You said you needed it for payroll," I said, turning to him. "But this?" I pointed to a hotel receipt. "Shows you spent 3 nights at the Coastal Haven Resort, booked under Julia Kane's name." Nathan's face went ashen. Emily's head snapped toward him. "Julia," she whispered, her voice trembling. "Who's Julia?" Nathan opened his mouth, but no words came. I didn't stop. I slid another page toward my father, George. "This is for you," I said. "A breakdown of the $12,000 I paid for your back surgery last year. Every hospital bill, every follow-up, itemized." George stared at the paper, his hands trembling, but he said nothing, as always. I turned to Margaret. "And you," I said, sliding a screenshot across the table. "March 10th, $3,800 wired to your account for emergency home repairs. 2 days later, you checked into a spa retreat in Napa Valley." Margaret's eyes twitched, but she tried to deflect. "Lydia, we're family. That money was given out of love." I cut her off, my voice like steel. "What kind of love laughs when I'm exiled? What kind of love never pays back a cent?" The table was a battlefield now, the Christmas cheer replaced by stunned silence. I pulled out my phone, opened a voice memo, and pressed play. Samantha's voice filled the room, clear and venomous. "Lydia's just a cash machine. No husband, no kids, no life. Cut her off and she'll crumble." Margaret's laughter followed, light and cruel. I stopped the recording. Samantha turned, pale, her freelance bravado gone. "You spied on me?" she hissed. "No," I said, stepping closer. "You sent that to Aunt Karen while gossiping. She forwarded it to me. I kept it, like I keep everything, because I've learned what betrayal looks like." Emily flipped to another page, a summary of every penny I'd given. $9,000 for Samantha's copywriting course, $6,500 for Nathan's new truck, $15,000 for Owen's preschool when Emily's shifts couldn't cover it. $92,000, I said, my voice steady, not bitter. 7 years, not one thank you, not one apology. Nathan clenched his fists. "You're twisted, Lydia, hoarding this like some paranoid freak." I met his gaze, unflinching. "No, Nathan. Someone who's been used too many times learns to protect herself." The dining room felt like it was holding its breath, the Christmas lights casting long shadows across the table where my family sat, stunned by the folder of truths I'd just laid bare. The $92,000 I'd given them over 7 years, every bank transfer, every receipt, every betrayal, was now an open wound. Nathan's face was red, his auto repair shop bravado crumbling. Samantha stared at the floor, her freelance writer's wit silenced. Emily, Nathan's wife, clutched the folder, her nurse's calm shattered by the name Julia Kane. My parents, Margaret and George, avoided my gaze, their silence louder than any apology could ever be. I stood there, my heart pounding but my voice steady. "You wanted me gone," I said, looking at each of them. "You voted, clapped, laughed, so let's make it official." I reached into my bag and pulled out a cream-colored envelope, unmarked except for a small note in my handwriting. "The time has come." I placed it in the center of the table, the soft thud echoing like a door slamming shut. Margaret's eyes widened. "Lydia, what is this?" she asked, her voice trembling, as if she could sense the finality. "Read it," I said, crossing my arms. Emily, still holding the folder, hesitated before picking up the envelope. She pulled out a stack of legal documents, her hands shaking as she scanned the pages. Her eyes flicked to me, disbelieving. You've revoked everything? She whispered. I nodded. Every tie. Financial power of attorney, emergency medical contact, guarantor for any of you, gone. I'm no longer the one in the hospital. Calls for George's back issues. I'm not the one bailing out Nathan's shop or Samantha's late rent. Margaret shot up from her chair, her part-time retail job leaving her no patience for this. You can't do this, Lydia. You're our daughter. Family doesn't just walk away. I met her gaze, my voice calm, but unyielding. Family doesn't hold a secret vote to exile someone and then applaud it. Family doesn't treat love like a debt I owe you. Samantha stood, pointing at me, her voice sharp. You act so righteous, but you're just controlling everything, aren't you? You? Love this power trip. I stepped closer, my eyes locked on hers. Wrong, Sam. I'm not controlling anything. I'm reclaiming my life from your demands, your lies, your endless need for me to fix what you break. I turned to George, who sat like a statue, his retired maintenance worker hands folded tightly. You called me mechanical once, Dad, like I had no heart. But you taught me that showing weakness meant no one would stand up for me. You proved it tonight. No one spoke. The Christmas carols in the background felt like a cruel joke. I picked up my coat, slipped it on, and walked toward the door. The glow of the tree lights flickered on the snow outside, beautiful but cold. Lydia, wait, Emily said softly, her voice breaking. You're really done with us? I paused, my hand on the doorknob, my back to them. I'm done letting you hurt me, I said, and stepped out into the Seattle night, the winter air sharp against my cheeks but lighter than the weight I'd carried for years. The Seattle snow had melted into gray slush by the time I got back to my apartment, but the weight of that Christmas night lingered like a bruise. I'd walked away from my family, Nathan, Samantha, Margaret, George, all of them, after exposing the $92,000 I'd poured into their lives and cutting every legal tie. My phone stayed silent for 2 days, and I thought, maybe they'd let me go. But then the buzzing started, like vultures circling a carcass they weren't done with yet. First came a text from Margaret, my mother, her part-time retail job never softening her knack for guilt trips. Lydia, you're still my daughter. Don't turn your back on us. We can fix this if you open your heart. I stared at the words, recognizing the pattern. Sweet promises laced with need. I didn't reply, but I didn't delete it either. It was evidence, a reminder of who they were when the masks came off. That afternoon, my sister Samantha emailed, her freelance copywriting flair making the words sound almost sincere. Lydia, I'm sorry for what happened. I didn't mean to hurt you, but Owen's been asking for you and Mom's a mess. Can you call just to calm things down? Then in a postscript, the real motive. By the way, Mom's behind on the house payments. The bank needs a co-signer to avoid foreclosure. No pressure. I closed the email, my chest tight but not with pain, just exhaustion. A real apology. Doesn't come with a bill. By the 4th day, Emily, Nathan's wife, called. Her voice, worn from long nursing shifts, trembled. Lydia, Owen misses you. He keeps talking about the snowman stories you told him. Can you visit for his sake? I wanted to believe her, but I knew better. Emily was kind, but she was caught in their web too. The next day, a small package arrived. No sender listed. Inside was a crayon drawing of a Christmas tree, Owen's wobbly handwriting scrawled across it. Aunt Lydia, I miss you. Do you still make cookies? My heart ached, the kind of ache that comes from loving someone too young to understand the grown-up mess around them. But I saw the manipulation behind it. Someone had put that pencil in his hand. I sat with the drawing, for an hour tracing the uneven lines. Owen was innocent, but his parents weren't. They didn't want me back. They wanted the old Lydia, the data analyst who wired money without questions, who smiled through their jabs about my boring life. I folded the drawing, slipped it into an envelope and mailed it back with a note. Owen, I love you, but I can't come back. Keep drawing. It hurt, but I'd learned that love doesn't mean letting people use you. A week later, George, my father, left a voicemail. his retired maintenance worker's rasp unmistakable. "Lydia, you're breaking your mother's heart. Nathan's shop is struggling. Come talk, like an adult. Don't let one fight make you a stranger." One fight. $92,000. A vote to exile me, their laughter. He called that a fight. I saved the message, not to answer, but to remember. They weren't sorry. They were just short. On cash, and shorter on me. 3 weeks after I walked out of that Christmas disaster, my life had settled into a strange kind of quiet. The texts from Margaret, Samantha's emails, even Owen's crayon drawing, they'd all stopped, or maybe I'd just stopped noticing. I was trying to rebuild, to focus on my data analyst work, to forget the $92,000 I'd sunk into a family that threw me away. But then, on a gray January morning, my phone rang, an unknown number flashing. I almost ignored it, but something made me pick up. "Lydia Harper?" a man's voice asked, clipped and professional. "This is David Ellison, attorney for your late grandmother, Eleanor." My breath caught. Grandma Eleanor, my mother's mother, had passed 2 years ago, leaving behind a small house and a lifetime of stories. I'd assumed her estate was settled. "There's a matter we need to discuss," David said. "Can you meet me today?" 2 hours later, I sat in his downtown Seattle office, a manila envelope in front of me, my name written in Eleanor's elegant script. David slid the envelope across the desk. "Your grandmother left a will with a specific clause, one she kept confidential until certain conditions were met." I opened it, my hands steady but my heart racing. The document named me as the primary heir to her estate, her house, savings, and investments totaling $1.2 million. I blinked, sure I'd misread. But the real shock came on the next page. A clause stating that if I was ever formally disowned or excluded by my family, the entire estate would transfer to me alone with no right of contest from anyone else. "They knew," David said, his voice low. "Your mother, Margaret, was informed of the clause after Eleanor's death. She shared it with Nathan and Samantha." The words hit like a punch. My family hadn't exiled me because I was cold or distant. They'd done it to trigger the clause, thinking they could claim the estate by cutting me out, assuming I'd never know. They'd gambled on my silence, my absence, to steal what Grandma Eleanor had left me. I sat there, the paper trembling in my hands, not from anger, but from clarity. Every laugh at that Christmas table, every vote to erase me, had been a calculated. Nathan's smug announcement, Samantha's smirk, Margaret's nod. They weren't just cruel, they were greedy. George's silence, as always, was complicity. I thought of Owen, his innocent drawing, and wondered if even that was part of their plan to soften me up later. David leaned forward. "You have full control now. The estate is yours, uncontestable." I looked at him, my mind spinning but my resolve clear. I could have marched back to that house, thrown the will in their faces, watched them squirm. But I didn't want revenge. I wanted freedom. "I'm not going back," I said, folding the document. "I'll use this to start over, somewhere they can't touch me." As I left the office, the Seattle rain felt different, not heavy, but cleansing. Grandma Eleanor had seen what I couldn't, that my family's love was conditional, a transaction. She'd given me a way out, not just with money, but with the truth. For the first time, I felt like I was carrying her strength, not their burdens. The rain in Oregon smells different from Seattle's, cleaner, softer, like it's washing away the past. By February, I'd left my old life behind, moving to a small town nestled along the Willamette Valley, a 3-hour drive from the house where my family had voted me out. I wasn't running from them, I was running toward myself. The $1.2 million from Grandma Eleanor's estate wasn't just money, it was permission to start over, to build a life where I wasn't defined by what I could give. My new home was a cozy apartment with cedar beams and wide windows that caught the morning light. I traded my soul-draining data analyst job for something smaller, more meaningful. A consulting business helping local nonprofits crunch numbers to fund community programs. No more 2 a.m. emails, no more corporate pressure, just real people with real dreams. For the first time, I felt useful, not used. I started therapy, not because I was broken, but because I wanted to understand the woman I was becoming. My therapist, Dr. Claire, had a warm smile that made it easy to admit. I used to think my worth was tied to fixing their messes. Every morning, I jogged along the river, each step peeling away the weight of years spent pleasing others. I learned to bake, filling my kitchen with the scent of lavender scones from a recipe I'd saved but never dared try. I lit candles, not to mask anything, but because I loved their flicker against the walls. One chilly afternoon, I ran into Grace Sullivan, an old college friend who'd drifted away when I was too buried in family drama to notice. She was a teacher now, her classroom stories brimming with the kind of joy I'd forgotten existed. Over tea at a corner cafe. We laughed until my sides ached, and as we stepped outside, she said, "Lydia, you're still you. Kind, steady. But now you know who deserves that light." I went home that night and updated my emergency contact list. No more Margaret, Nathan, or Samantha. I added Grace, not because she needed me, but because I knew she'd show up if I needed her. My phone stayed quiet most days, but when it buzzed, it was never about emergencies followed by bank details. My family tried reaching out after the estate news leaked. Margaret's voicemails, Samantha's texts about reconnecting, even a letter from Nathan claiming he was sorry, but needing a loan for his shop. I didn't respond. I kept their messages, not to dwell, but to remind myself why I'd left. One spring evening, I was invited to speak at a local women's seminar on breaking free from toxic relationships. I hesitated, but Grace pushed me to go. In a small library room, with no fancy lights or polished stage, I stood before 30 women, some cradling babies, others clutching notebooks, and told my story. The Christmas betrayal, the $92,000 I'd given, the will that exposed their greed, and the hardest choice I'd ever made. Walking away from the only family I'd known. When I finished, a young woman stood, tears in her eyes. "I thought I was alone in this," she said, her voice shaking. "Thank you for saying what I couldn't." I stepped down and hugged her, and for the first time, I understood what it meant to give without losing myself. That night, I walked home past a bakery where the owner remembered my love for lemon tarts after one visit. I bought a slice, strolled through streets alive with the hum of spring, and opened my apartment door to a room filled with peace. No urgent emails, no demands, no guilt. On my bookshelf, I kept a tin box with their letters, not to haunt me, but to mark a line I'd never cross again. I used to think freedom meant being loved by family. Now I knew it meant loving myself enough to walk away from those who only saw me as a lifeline. As snow fell outside my window that next Christmas, I sat with a mug of chamomile tea, the glow of a single candle warming the room. I wasn't lonely. I was whole. I didn't lose my family. I found the woman I was always meant to be, and she was enough.